The last person to walk up my porch steps uninvited was a raccoon. I remember because it knocked over the firewood and stared at me like I owed it something. When I saw Elaine's suitcase wobbling in that exact same spot, I felt the same feeling. Something has come here to stay. I just finished salting the front steps when I saw her coming up the drive. Big parka, red scarf, the same suitcase she used to bring on her disastrous marriages, wheels sticky with gravel, handle rattling like bones. Elaine. It had been 5 years, maybe 6. We hadn't spoken since the funeral. Even then, she was late and wearing perfume that made the pastor cough. Now here she was, dragging herself up the hill like she was on pilgrimage, face flushed and smiling too wide. "You still salt your steps like a damn Yankee," she said, by way of hello. "They freeze," I replied. "You freeze." She laughed, brushing snow off her hat. I didn't laugh. She hugged me. I let her. Her coat was damp. I could smell motel shampoo on her hair. She pulled back and looked at me like I was something in a museum, not quite familiar, but just familiar enough to claim. "God, you haven't changed." "I have," I said. She didn't hear it, or pretended not to. The suitcase bumped up every stair. She didn't wait to be invited in. She walked straight into the house like it still remembered her, like the furniture might start rearranging itself to please her. "It smells the same," she said, "like old books and cinnamon. I thought you'd have moved by now." "Where would I go?" "I don't know, somewhere with people." She said it lightly, but it stung anyway, as if my solitude was a defect, as if she hadn't been part of what made me choose it. Elaine didn't say why she'd come, not right away. She just said she was in between situations and needed a few days to regroup. She used those words, situations, regroup, like a woman used to navigating polite excuses. She didn't ask if she could stay. She just wheeled the suitcase into the guest room and said, "I'll make the bed. I remember where the extra sheets are." She didn't. She hadn't lived here since 1979. I stood in the hallway and watched her open drawers, rearrange the kitchen towels like they were in the wrong order. Every gesture was casual, but I could feel it already. The way she moved, like the house was hers, like she had a right to the space, like she'd pressed unpause on a movie she thought was still playing. That night she made tea in my mug, the one with the chip on the handle, the one I reach for automatically every evening after the news. She used the last of the lemon, didn't ask, didn't notice. "You really live out here all alone?" she asked, barefoot, tucked under one of my blankets on the couch. "I do." "Don't you get lonely?" I didn't answer right away. I watched the snow through the window, the one that faces north, the one that never gets sunlight in winter, the one Tom Reeves once said made the house look a little haunted. "No," I said finally. "Not like you mean." She chuckled, still prickly as a pine cone. I didn't tell her that I used to be warm, that I used to be accommodating, generous, soft, before softness became the invitation people used to take things they didn't return. Before bed, she peeked into the attic. "Still locked?" "Always." "Dad's papers are probably disintegrating in there." "They were sorted years ago." She nodded, didn't push, but I saw the way her eyes lingered on the doorknob, just a second too long. When I finally got to bed, I left the hallway light on, not because I was scared, but because I knew her well enough to know Elaine never arrives with nothing. She brings a story. She brings a plan. She brings need. And need, in her hands, is never a request. It's a hook. The first thing she moved was the armchair. My chair. I came downstairs that morning and found it facing the fireplace, not the window. Not the north-facing window, the one where I sit every morning with my coffee and pretend the world still has silence in it. She smiled like she'd done me a favor. "More cozy this way," she said, already spooning sugar into a cup that wasn't hers. You were facing a draft. She didn't ask. She didn't ask about the throw blanket either. The wool one Robert gave me on our 35th anniversary, the one she folded and placed into the hallway linen closet. Too itchy, she said. You should treat yourself to fleece. I didn't answer. I just moved it back later. But the chair stayed facing the fireplace. Next came the kitchen. Mark, where do you keep the olive oil? Top right cabinet. Why not next to the stove? That's where normal people put it. And just like that, she moved it, with a little clatter like punctuation. Then she rearranged the spice rack, then the fridge. Your system makes no sense, she laughed. Don't worry, I'll just optimize it. Optimize, like I was a software bug. She started doing the shopping, then forgot to get the rye bread I like. They were out, she said. You went to the co-op. They always have it. Well, maybe they changed their supplier. She bought almond milk I didn't ask for, threw out my jar of molasses because it was too old, replaced it with agave syrup from California. Cleaner ingredients, she told me. You'd thank me if you read labels. I had read labels since 1972. One morning, I opened the drawer where I keep the mail and found everything restacked, sorted into folders. Utilities, healthcare, home. Elaine had labeled them in her swooping cursive. Even my tax documents, the ones I hadn't touched since March, were opened. She was sipping tea when I brought it up. Were you in my paperwork? It was a mess, she said, waving a hand. I didn't read anything private, I swear. Just thought I'd help. Don't. She raised an eyebrow. You're welcome. She started opening the curtains without asking, started locking the back door in the middle of the day. You leave it unlocked like it's the 1950s. You know people rob old ladies. Nobody robs the woman who carries a rake in winter. She didn't laugh. Elaine didn't understand Vermont. She didn't understand me. One afternoon, I came in from shoveling and found her on my computer. The desktop was different. The icons rearranged. The bookmarks gone. I was just checking something, she said. Your internet is prehistoric. I signed you up for a faster plan. With whose money? Oh, don't worry, it's bundled. I took care of it. She smiled like she was a nurse bringing soup. But my chest tightened in that specific, old way. The kind of tight that comes when you feel something small has been taken and you can't prove it yet. She started referring to the house as ours. We should paint that hallway, don't you think? Ours is too dark. We should replace the curtains. Ours are dated. I was thinking, what if we turned that old office into a guest room? More welcoming, more modern. Every time she said it, I felt the floor shift a little under me. Hour. One night, I went to bed early, needed quiet. I left a lamp on, a book open. When I came back out 2 hours later, the lamp was off, book closed, my bookmark missing. Elaine was sitting in my chair, still facing the fireplace, watching a cooking show with the sound on low. Couldn't sleep, she said. She didn't move when I entered the room. Didn't offer to get up. Didn't apologize. She just turned up the volume slightly and said, You know, this house used to feel so cold when we were kids. I don't remember ever being this comfortable here. I stood in the doorway. It was never yours to be comfortable in. She turned her head, just a little. It is now. I didn't say anything. I went back to bed. But I left the lamp on this time, because I needed to see, because I knew rearranging the house was just practice. The next thing she wanted to move was me. The next morning, Elaine made pancakes. Not that I'd asked. She was already at the stove when I came down, humming to herself, spatula in one hand, pot of coffee brewing behind her, like we'd always been that kind of household. Cheerful, collaborative, domestic. We weren't. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she said without turning. I hadn't slept. The air in my room was too warm, too quiet, and I kept imagining footsteps that didn't happen. "I figured I'd make us something nice. You've been doing so much." She smiled at me like a nurse with a difficult patient. I sat down, not because I was hungry, but because it's hard to argue before coffee. That was the mistake. After breakfast, she cleared the dishes, and before I could stand up, she said, "Oh, before I forget, I have a few papers I need you to glance over. Nothing serious, just housekeeping." She said it like we were running a bed and breakfast. She walked to her purse, the oversized leather one she kept zipped tight and always within reach, and pulled out a thin stapled stack, clipped at the corner, highlighted. "I was sorting some old stuff," she said, setting it down in front of me, "and realized Dad never updated the asset declaration after Mom died. It's probably a clerical oversight, but I figured we should get ahead of it." That word again. We. I looked at the top sheet. Joint Affidavit of Asset Relationship. Filed under the County Recorder's Office. Preliminary copy. 2 names listed. Margaret Halloway. Elaine Halloway. Under property in question, a parcel number, latitude-longitude coordinates, and the name of our address. The house. My house. "Elaine," I said slowly, "why does this have your name on it?" She didn't look up from rinsing the pan. "Well, technically, we both inherited it when Dad passed. You just stayed." "That's not true. It's not a fight," she said quickly, holding up both hands. "It's just paperwork. The county changed its formatting. I figured it'd be easier if we signed together. That way they won't get confused." I stared at the form, then flipped to the second page, already partially filled out. 2 signature lines. Her name, signed. Mine, blank. "Elaine," I said, "this house was left to me, directly. Robert and I paid for the mortgage after Dad died. It was transferred into our name. You said you didn't want it. You didn't even come to the reading of the will. Because I didn't need drama at the time." She said that like the drama had been my fault. "This isn't a big deal," she continued, still smiling, still sweet. "I just want things to be clean, legal. You know how the government is. I don't want to be penalized later for not asserting my half." "There is no half," I said. "Well," she said, and finally turned around, folding the towel in her hands with too much care. "That's not how probate works. Not always." That was when I knew. She hadn't shown up with a suitcase. She'd shown up with a plan that had paperwork, language, pre-filled blanks. I slid the packet across the table, careful, slow. "I'm not signing this. Margaret, it's not a contract." I said no. She stared at me, then smiled like a woman who's realized the milk has gone sour but is still trying to serve it. "Okay," she said, "no problem. We'll revisit it later, when you're in a better headspace." "This is my headspace." "Sure." She started humming again. After she went upstairs for a shower, I called Tom. Didn't leave a voicemail, didn't say why, just said, "Do you have a minute?" He came by an hour later, knocked once and let himself in. He brought no firewood this time, only a worn brown envelope. We sat by the window, the north-facing one, and I told him everything. About the paperwork, the signatures, the phrasing. Tom didn't say, "I told you so." He just opened the envelope and pulled out a photocopy of the original deed transfer. "This is dated 1987. he said. Sole proprietor. No lien, no debt, no secondary ownership. So she's lying. She's betting you won't check. I didn't sleep that night either, but this time I didn't imagine the footsteps, because now I knew. They were already inside the house, and they weren't leaving without taking something. She was in town that morning, running errands, she'd said, in that breezy way she used whenever she wanted to disappear without questions. That suited me just fine. By the time her car rolled down the drive, I'd already set 2 cups of coffee out and folded the paperwork neatly on the table. 1 folder, 2 names, only one of them mine. Tom knocked just once. He never needed to be invited. That's the difference between good men and controlling ones. Good men knock because they respect the door. Controlling people only knock to see how long before you open. He looked tired that morning. Flannel shirt half-buttoned, the collar turned up like he'd dressed in a hurry, but his eyes were steady. Behind him stood a younger woman, maybe late 30s, hair tied back, wool coat, no smile, no flourish. She didn't extend a hand right away, just nodded. "Nora," she said, "probate attorney, your neighbor's daughter." "You don't look like a lawyer," I said. She smiled, small, no teeth. "Good." We sat at the kitchen table, same one Elaine had laid her papers on. I showed them what she gave me, the affidavit, the signature lines, the language that twisted ownership into shared interest. Nora read it all in silence. Then, "She's not dumb. She's my sister. Not mutually exclusive." I blinked. She wasn't being cruel, just precise. "This is the beginning of a claim," she said, tapping the paper. "A soft entry. She's testing your boundaries." She said it was for taxes. Of course she did, but she didn't file it yet. "She's hoping you will." Tom sipped his coffee and didn't look up. "Margaret," Nora continued, "you said the property was transferred to you in '87. Do you have the deed?" "Tom does." "Good. Then you have proof of sole ownership." "So I'm safe?" Nora paused. "You're technically safe, but legally, only if you act before she does." That sat heavy, because I realized something I hadn't been willing to admit. Elaine hadn't come to visit. She'd come to stay, and not just in the house, in the paperwork, in the inheritance, in the narrative. She wasn't looking for shelter. She was looking for position. I looked at Tom. He didn't say anything, just waited, like he always did. He'd known this woman since she was little, helped her sell Girl Scout cookies on that same porch. He didn't have to speak to say, "You don't deserve this. You're not crazy. Let her hate you if it means she won't own you." "What should I do?" I asked. Nora didn't hesitate. "First, draft a letter formally revoking any implied co-interest in the property. Second, file a statement of ownership with the county clerk, something public, quiet, and clear. Third, if she tries again, we escalate." "I don't want to fight her." "Then let her win." I stared. "That's the choice," she said calmly. "No one's forcing you to go to war, but don't lie to yourself. This is a battlefield. You just haven't fired back yet." I stood and walked to the window, the north-facing one. The snow was starting to melt in patches. The trees were still bare. The road that curved away from the house looked like a scar, thin and healing slow. "I don't want to be the bad guy," I said quietly. Nora stepped up beside me. "You're not." "She'll say I am." "She already is." After they left, I stood at the sink for a long time. The coffee pot was still half full. Elaine's mug was sitting upside down in the dish rack, clean, empty, just like she wanted me to be. That night, I didn't confront her. Didn't mention Nora, didn't bring up the forms. Elaine made soup and talked about some neighbor's dog like nothing was changing. But I noticed the mail was opened before I got to it, and that my bank statement was folded in a way I wouldn't have folded it. She smiled when I caught her glance, the kind of smile you give someone you think won't fight back. But I was writing a letter now, quietly, legally, and the next time she set a piece of paper in front of me, I'd be the one holding the pen. Elaine was in the kitchen that morning, humming again. She'd started humming more lately. People only hum when they're trying to keep the silence from answering them. "What are you up to today?" she asked without turning. "Tidying." She smiled, still stirring. "You? A mess? Now I've seen everything." I didn't answer, just climbed the stairs to the attic and shut the door behind me. The attic had always been cold, not just cold in the physical way, though it was that too, but in the way certain rooms carry a temperature memory. Up here, Robert's presence still lived in the scent of old pine and sealed cardboard. I hadn't been up here in months, maybe years, but today I needed space she hadn't rearranged. There was a box behind the chimney, small, dusty, taped shut. I remembered it only because Robert used to joke that it was where we hide the treasure. We never opened it after he died. I'd assumed it was just receipts or warranties or old light bulbs we never found again. But when I pulled the tape and cracked the lid, I found 3 things. 1, faded photo of Robert and me from 1982. We were in front of the house, smiling, coats off, like it was finally ours. 2, original deed transfer, his handwriting, dated and initialed. 3, courage, sealed, with my name on it. My hands shook when I sat down, not from fear, from the kind of grief that's too old to cry over but still too young to touch without gloves. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single page, his handwriting. M, if you're reading this, it means I'm not around to say it out loud. I should have told you a long time ago, but I let my own guilt get in the way. This house is yours, fully, cleanly. It was always meant to be. You held the place together long before I could afford to. You made it into something that loves people back. I told Elaine years ago not to expect to share. She didn't take it well. There's a reason she stopped calling after 2006. If she ever comes back, and I think she might, be cautious. She doesn't want the house. She wants what the house represents, a version of life where she didn't make the choices she made. You don't owe her that version. You owe her nothing. Love you always. R. I read it twice, then a third time, slower. Every line landed like a permission slip I didn't know I'd been waiting for. You don't owe her that version. I whispered it out loud, just to hear it in the room. The attic didn't answer, but my spine did. It straightened. I sat there for maybe half an hour, holding that letter like it was a weapon that didn't need to be drawn, just known. When I came back downstairs, Elaine was on the phone. She didn't notice me at first. She was pacing near the window, speaking low. No, I haven't pushed yet. She's stubborn, but she's still alone. She'll cave. A pause. Yes, I'm careful. She's still sharp. I just need to time it right. Another pause. Don't worry. I'm not walking away from this empty-handed again. Then she saw me and smiled. God, that smile. The kind people give to cats they think they can still trick. You were gone a while, she said. Just the attic. Find anything good? I did. She tilted her head. Like what? I smiled back, the kind people give when they know the cat's teeth aren't sharp anymore. Just paper. That night I put Robert's letter in the lockbox, same one I used to keep Maggie's baby bracelet in. Then I opened the yellow legal pad I hadn't used since Robert passed and wrote down a single line. Elaine knew the truth. She just came to rewrite it. Tomorrow, I would see Nora again, and this time, I wouldn't ask questions. I'd bring answers, and I'd bring the letter. Because now I wasn't defending a house. I was defending the story of my life. Nora didn't blink when I handed her the letter. She read it twice, lips pressed in a flat line, her fingertip holding the edge of the page like she wasn't just reading. She was weighing. Then she folded it carefully and slid it back into the envelope. This is a gift, she said. It's a warning. Both. We sat in her tiny office. 2 folding chairs, a desk with real wood grain, a window that overlooked nothing but salt-stained sidewalks and a billboard for knee replacements. There were no diplomas on the wall, just a calendar and a sticky note that said, "They count on your silence." I liked her more for that. "Here's what we'll do," Nora said. "First, we file a statement of uncontested sole ownership based on the original deed and Robert's letter. That gets time-stamped at the county level and blocks any alternative claim without full court review." "Will that trigger something?" "It will prevent something." "Good." She drafted the form in under 20 minutes. Her typing was surgical. No fluff, no delay. She included language Robert himself had used in the transfer papers. Irrevocable designation of sole residency and asset assignment. She added a second letter from me, formally stating, "No shared inheritance was offered or agreed upon." Then she printed 2 copies, slid them across the table, and handed me her pen. "You ready?" "I've been ready since I found the damn chair turned around." We signed, stamped, filed, and just like that, the balance shifted. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt even. Before I left, Nora said one last thing. "Margaret, if she escalates, don't argue. Don't defend. Just document. I've seen people like her. The more she senses power slipping, the more she'll press. But she has no claim now. None. Stay calm, stay boring. We'll handle the rest." "What if she threatens something?" "Let her." She paused. "The law is quieter than threats. And louder, too." When I got home, the driveway was empty. Elaine's car was gone. No note, no text. But the mail had been brought inside, opened, again. She'd even circled a flyer for a local real estate seminar and scribbled, "We should go," in the margin. We, that word again, getting smaller every time she used it. That night I changed the locks. I didn't tell her, didn't plan on needing to, but the act of it, the metallic finality of it, felt like medicine. Next morning she returned from her mystery errand. Car door slammed, boots stomping. I was making tea when she came in. "Hey," she called. "Can we talk?" Talk. "I feel like you've been distant." "I've been busy." "Doing what?" I turned to look at her, smiled. "Tidying." She sat at the table, hands folded too neatly. "I get the sense you're upset about the paperwork." "I'm not." "Then what's going on?" "Nothing's going on." That answer made her squint. "Did Tom say something?" "He's been a neighbor." "A nosy one." "He knocks." A long pause. "Look, Margaret, if you're confused about the property stuff, we can go to someone together, a neutral third party, just to make sure everything's fair." "It already is. I just don't want you to feel pressured. These things get messy. Only when someone makes them messy." That stopped her. Her face twitched, just slightly. Then she smiled again, tighter. "I'm trying here. I'm really trying to be the sister you need." "Are you?" The silence this time wasn't cold. It was clear. She stood. "Let me know when you're ready to have a real conversation." She didn't wait for a reply. Didn't ask what kind of tea I was drinking. Didn't notice the second envelope on the table, addressed to the county clerk, stamped and sealed. Confirmation that I didn't need her permission or her name to hold on to my life. I stared out the window for a long time after she left. Not the front window, not the one facing town, the one that faced north, where nothing ever grew, where the wind hit hardest, where the light never lingered. But the view was mine, and it always had been. The first call came from Martha down at the library. "Hope you don't mind me asking, hun," she said, voice gentle like she was stepping over ice. "But is everything all right at home?" "Why wouldn't it be?" A pause. "Elaine came in yesterday, asked about your reading history, said you'd been struggling to keep track of things lately." "Did she say that?" I wasn't sure what to say. You could have said no. I didn't want to lie. After I hung up, I sat in the stillness of the kitchen and listened. Elaine was upstairs. The water was running. A bath or the shower. The kind of running water that makes a woman feel safe enough to plot. I opened the drawer where I kept the yellow pad and wrote down the date, time, and Martha's words. Asked about memory lapses. Used the phrase mental decline. Implies diminished capacity. Then I underlined that last line, twice. By the next morning, 2 more people had called. The pharmacist, the church secretary. She just seemed concerned. She said she was looking out for you. Said maybe it was time for you to get some help. Not one of them thought to ask me first. Not one of them called it what it was. Strategic erosion. I called Nora from the back porch. The air was brittle, like glass about to break. She answered on the second ring. "Margaret," she started whispering. "To whom?" "Anyone who'll listen." I heard keys clacking. "You want to come in?" "No. You want me to come there?" "Not yet." "You want to act?" I paused. Then, "Yes." By noon, she'd booked a private voluntary, documented, neutral. If she tries to argue mental decline, we file this, preemptive strike. Do people really do this to family? Every week. Does it work? Only if the target stays quiet. I didn't tell Elaine where I went the next day. Just said I had errands in Montpelier. She barely looked up from her tablet. She was reading something with the headline, "What You Deserve After Caretaking." I stared at her for a moment too long. She smiled like I'd passed a test. The psychologist was kind, professional, direct. Her office smelled like clean wood and lemon. No carpet, no clutter. Just enough warmth to feel human, not enough to disarm. She gave me 6 tests: word retention, simple math, memory recall, abstract reasoning, drawing a clock, interpreting proverbs. I aced every single one. At the end, she looked up from her clipboard. "You're sharp as a pin." I was a librarian for 37 years. "That'll do it." She handed me a printed letter, embossed seal, signed, dated. No indication of cognitive impairment, no warning signs of dementia, no observable deficits of executive function. I held it like a shield. This won't stop her. But it will stop a judge. That night, Elaine made soup again. She was in a good mood. That was the scariest part. "I was thinking," she said, pouring broth into the bowl I hadn't asked for. "Maybe we should bring someone in to help you. Just a few hours a week. Keep things on track." Things are on track. Sure, but don't you think it's time to make things easier? For whom? She blinked. Too long. For us both. I didn't answer. I didn't argue. I just stood, went to the office, and placed the sealed cognitive letter in the folder marked legal, active, right next to the deed. Robert's letter, my notarized statement. The kind of folder a woman keeps when she knows someone is trying to make her seem invisible. Later that night, Elaine knocked on my door. Want to play cards? Not tonight. You okay? I remember everything. What? Nothing. Good night. When she walked away, I reached for the yellow pad again and wrote, "She knows I'm onto her. I know she's onto me. But she doesn't know I've already won. Because I've already documented it." And then, for the first time in weeks, I slept like a woman no one could diagnose. It started with the coffee mugs. That morning, I found mine in the trash, the chipped one. The one Robert bought from that roadside stand with the hand-painted cardinal. Gone. No accident. No explanation. Just gone. In its place was a gleaming white ceramic one with E painted in looping gold cursive. Elaine sat at the kitchen table, sipping from it like she was already crowned. You threw it out. I didn't ask. I stated. She looked up, blinked, tilted her head. It was ugly. It was mine. It had a chip. Could have cut your lip. I've used it every morning for 17 years. Exactly, she said, setting her cup down harder than necessary. You need to let go of some things. The room felt colder, not from the window, from the absence of pretending. You've been talking to people, I said quietly. People talk to me, asking about my memory, my state of mind. I'm concerned you're circling. Her jaw tightened. You've been sneaking off to meet with that little lawyer, haven't you? I haven't been sneaking. God, Margaret, you really think I'm out to get you? Aren't you? She stood, fast, abrupt, like a fire had just started under her chair. I came here to help you. You came here to reclaim something you lost. You think you're so noble, sitting in this cold little mausoleum like you're some kind of saint of sacrifice. You don't even realize how much people have done for you, like throw away my belongings, sign my name on legal documents, ask strangers if I'm senile. I was checking. The new one spilled slightly, a brown halo forming around the E. You've always been like this, she hissed. Cold, self-righteous, keeping everything to yourself like you're better than the rest of us. I kept you for house because I paid for it. With Robert's money. That's not true. Everything in this house came from someone else. Mom's china, Dad's tools, Robert's retirement. You've never made anything yourself. I stared at her, and for the first time in years, I saw her clearly. A woman who believed she was owed something because her own choices hadn't paid off. You know why you're alone, Margaret? Because I closed the door. No. Because you can't need people. You're too proud. You're so busy being dignified, you forgot how to be human. And you forgot how to be kind. We stood there, both breathing too hard for a house this quiet. Outside, the snow was starting again. Heavy, wet flakes. The kind that coat everything and make the roads blur. Elaine turned toward the sink, gripped its edge. Do you know how it feels to be the sister who doesn't get picked? You picked yourself a long time ago. They always loved you more. They trusted me. And that's why I'm taking it back. She turned to me with eyes that looked like they belonged to someone younger, someone feral. You're going to give me half. No. Then I'll go to court. I've already been. She blinked. You're bluffing. I reached into the drawer, pulled out the folder, slid it across the table, slow. Inside, injecting's letter, the deed, the competency letter, the county filing, E's Dora's business card. All dated, all sealed, all legal. Elaine didn't open it. She just stared at the top page, her hands curled into fists at her sides. You've been planning this. I've been protecting this. She looked up. Her face was unreadable. Then she said, I never should have come back. I nodded. That's the first honest thing you've said in this house. She walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't take her mug. Just left it there on the table. The E now smeared brown, leaking slowly toward the edge. I picked up my pad and wrote. She finally dropped the performance. And it wasn't rage. It was grief. But grief doesn't entitle you to theft. And sorrow doesn't mean you get to rewrite someone else's life. She might not leave. Not yet. But from now on, the door is locked. And every word, documented. The next morning, Elaine didn't come down for coffee. That had never happened. For 2 weeks straight, she'd been in the kitchen before me, humming, rearranging, peeking at the mail. But that morning the kitchen was quiet. The humming was gone. So was the mug with the gold E. I didn't go looking for her. Instead, I opened the back closet, the one with Robert's old filing box. Inside, I tucked 3 things. Et deed, a notarized ownership statement, and dissatisfaction and the letter from the psychologist. Then I slipped the box into a reusable shopping bag, added a folded sweater on top, and zipped the bag shut like I was headed to the co-op. At 10:14 a.m., I knocked on Tom's back door. He opened it like he'd been expecting me, even though I hadn't called. You said if I ever needed a favor, I began. It's already done, he replied. We sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by small tools, 2 open crossword books, and the smell of leftover meatloaf. He didn't ask for explanations. I didn't offer any. I simply said, I need somewhere to keep this, just for a little while. It'll be safe here. I handed him the bag. His fingers curled around the handles like they meant something. I might need a place to stay soon, too. You want the guest room? I want the quiet. He nodded. It's always quiet here. Back at the house, Elaine was in the living room. She was sitting in my chair again, thumbing through a stack of old photographs I hadn't seen in years. When she looked up, her expression was unreadable. You cleaned out the filing drawer. It was mine to clean. You're really going to turn this into a war, huh? No, you did that. I'm just not surrendering. She didn't argue, didn't lunge. She just smiled, that same smile she used at Dad's funeral, when she told the lawyer he could skip reading the estate terms because Margaret already knows what's hers. I'd known then, too, but I hadn't done anything about it. This time, I had. That evening, I started packing, 1 suitcase, 1 garment bag, my mother's brooch, my father's fountain pen. The essentials, not to flee, just to move first. Elaine knocked on my door just before sundown. You going somewhere? Not yet. Planning something? Not for you. You're just going to abandon the house? You mean the one I paid for, maintained, protected? It doesn't have to be like this. You're right, I said. It could have been honest. She opened her mouth, closed it, then walked away. Not a word, not a slam, just footsteps down the hall. The same footsteps I used to imagine in the silence before I knew they were real. Before bed, I walked through the house, room by room, light by light, window by window. I wasn't saying goodbye, I was memorizing it. Because once a woman's been invaded, she deserves to remember what peace felt like, even if only for herself. I turned out the kitchen light last, left a note on the counter. I'll be gone tomorrow. Do not touch my room. Do not open the locked drawers. If anything's moved when I return, it will be the last time you enter this house. I didn't sign it. She'd know who it was from. That night, I didn't write in the yellow pad. I didn't need to. Some days don't need to be recorded. They're already sharp enough to remember. And this one cut clean. Tom drove me to the courthouse. The snow had turned to sleet, wet, loud, sharp against the windshield. He didn't ask questions. "You're sure you want to be there in person?" he asked. "If she's going to lie about me out loud, I'd like to stand in the room while she does it." The hearing was scheduled for 10:30 a.m., courtroom 4C, probate division. Elaine had filed an emergency petition 2 days earlier. Nora had warned me. "She's trying to flip the chessboard, claim you're not competent, demand a conservatorship, gain financial access." Can she really do that? Only if you stay home. I wore my gray coat, the one with the clean lines and the silver pin Robert gave me when the mortgage was finally paid off. Nora met me on the courthouse steps. "She's here," she said, filed under the name concerned next of kin. What a performance. "Don't worry," Nora said calmly. "You already won." The courtroom was small, quiet, more carpet than wood, more paper than people. Elaine sat at the table to the left, next to a local attorney I recognized from a billboard downtown. She looked composed, as if she'd rehearsed the role of worried sister so many times she no longer needed a script. She barely looked at me when I walked in, but her lawyer did. The kind of look reserved for people you think are about to break down. The judge, a woman in her 60s with a voice like a librarian, called the session to order. Elaine's attorney spoke first. His tone was careful, low-key, performative in a way that sounded like compassion, but smelled like strategy. "This isn't about ownership," he said. "It's about safety. My client is concerned that her sister, the respondent, may no longer be capable of handling complex property and financial matters, and may be vulnerable to undue influence by outside individuals." He turned to me briefly, smiled, like a vulture with a press pass. "This petition is not accusatory. It's protective." Then Nora stood. She didn't posture. She didn't even raise her voice. She simply handed the clerk a folder. "Your Honor, enclosed are the following: a certified letter of cognitive competency from a licensed evaluator, a notarized declaration of sole property ownership, the original deed transfer dated 1987, a letter from the decedent supporting sole asset transfer to my client, and a record of attempted financial manipulation by the petitioner, including unfiled documents and signed affidavits." The judge flipped through the papers, slowly, methodically. "Is the respondent here?" the judge asked without looking up. I stood. My hands didn't shake. "I am. Have you reviewed the petition filed by your sister?" "I have." "Do you believe she is acting in your interest?" "No." "Do you feel coerced by your legal representative?" "No." "Do you understand the property, its status, and its ownership. Yes. Are you prepared to defend that ownership if necessary? I already have. The room went very still. Elaine still hadn't looked at me. Her mouth was tight, her hands clenched in her lap. She looked smaller than she had in the house, like the story she'd built had finally hit its last scene. The judge leaned back, then spoke clearly. The court finds no evidence of diminished capacity, nor any valid grounds for emergency conservatorship. The petition is dismissed with prejudice. Further attempts to contest ownership must be routed through standard civil procedure, and may be subject to sanction if found frivolous. She turned her gaze to Elaine. This court is not a tool for settling family grievances. Then she banged the gavel. Once. Final. Outside, Elaine followed me onto the sidewalk. The sleet was heavier now, loud against our coats, our shoulders, our silence. You embarrassed me in there, she hissed. No, I said. You did that. This isn't over. It is. You just don't know how to lose quietly. She stepped closer, eyes narrowed. You'd rather destroy your last living family member than share one damn house. I met her gaze. You destroyed that?
I'm just locking the door behind you. She didn't reply. She just walked away, coat-soaked, hair flat, that muggy, aimless energy of someone with nowhere to go and no one left to blame. In Tom's truck, I finally exhaled. Nora didn't speak. She just handed me the original letter from the judge, stamped official. I folded it carefully, placed it in the folder, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the quiet return. It rained that day. Not snow, not sleet, just plain, gray rain, the kind that makes the windows fog and the porch smell like pine bark and old earth. Elaine's car pulled into the driveway just after noon. Tom saw it from across the road. He called like we'd agreed. She's back. Did she bring anyone? Just her pride. She tried the front door first, then the side, then circled around to the back, where the old sliding door used to stick, but not anymore. I'd fixed it, quietly, like everything else. The locks didn't budge. She knocked, once, then again, then louder. No one answered. There was no need to. I was already gone, had left that morning with a packed bag, a forwarding order at the post office, and a calm heart. Not forever, just for a while. Just long enough to let the storm rattle itself out. Elaine stood on the porch for a few minutes. Tom said she looked like she might cry, but didn't. She took something from her bag, a manila envelope, and slid it under the door. Then got in her car and drove away. No note on the windshield. No second glance in the mirror. Just taillights fading into wet asphalt. When I came home that evening, the house was still like it used to be. No light left on by someone else, no dishes in the wrong place, no perfume clinging to the air like a claim. Just silence. My kind of silence. I found the envelope against the threshold, damp at the corners. It had my name on it, written in her hand. I didn't open it. I didn't even bring it inside. I set it on the porch table, covered it with a rock, and left it there. Tomorrow it would rain again, or not. Either way, I wouldn't need what was inside. There are some things women like me are expected to do. We're expected to forgive because we're older, to absorb hurt because we're wiser, to bend because it's just family. But forgiveness isn't a currency, and wisdom doesn't mean silence.
It means knowing which words you don't need to hear again, even if they're written in ink. I made tea from my own leaves, in my own chipped mug, not out of nostalgia, not out of principle, just because it felt right in my hands. That night I wrote one last entry in the yellow pad. She came back, found a house that no longer opened for her, left a letter I'll never read, because closure isn't what's written, it's what you refuse to reopen. Outside, the porch light clicked on with a timer. The north-facing window glowed just a little, and inside the house, everything stayed exactly where I'd left it. The snow is gone now. The mud has started to show again, brown and slushy beneath the hedges, that ugly, honest part of winter, the part no one romanticizes. I sit by the window, the one facing north. I used to hate it. Too cold, too exposed, too gray. But lately, I've come to see it differently. It doesn't face the street. It doesn't show the mailbox or the road where people come and go. It looks out on nothing. And nothing is finally enough. Elaine hasn't called. She hasn't come back. The letter, the one she left beneath the door, is still out on the porch table, warped now from rain, the ink probably bleeding into the paper like bruises under skin. Sometimes I pass by and see it, half curled under the stone. It doesn't bother me. It's just weather now. Nora calls once a week. She asks if I need anything. I don't. She asks if I'd like to come in and update the file. I won't. She says, "You're one of the most quietly formidable women I've ever met." I laugh and say, "I've always been that way." I just stopped apologizing for it. Tom comes by twice a week with firewood. Sometimes we play gin rummy. Sometimes we sit and don't say anything. He never asks about Elaine, and I never explain what didn't happen between us. That's the best kind of friend, I think. Someone who keeps you company without trying to take your story. I still write in the yellow pad, just a line or two, not to track, not to document. Not anymore. Now it's a kind of punctuation, a way to mark that the day happened, that I happened. Yesterday I wrote, "Some houses aren't haunted. They're just waiting for someone to stay." I never left. That's what people don't understand about survival. You don't always need to run to escape something. Sometimes all you have to do is not open the door again. The power didn't return to me all at once. It wasn't a gavel bang. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't even the moment the locks turned. It came in small, quiet places. The first time I threw away something she left behind. The morning I rearranged the silverware back to the way I liked it. Moment I realized I didn't care what was in the envelope. Power, I've learned, is not volume. It's quiet certainty. The window is open today. Just a crack. Enough to let the wind through, to hear the sound of the branches brushing against the gutter. It's not dramatic. It's not symbolic. It's just spring. And I'm still here. When people talk about aging, they use words like grace or dignity. They mean silence. They mean compliance. But I think there's something more sacred than grace. Something I never had a word for before now. Maybe it's this. Dignity isn't about being good. It's about refusing to be erased. I am not invisible. I was never losing my mind. And this house? It remembers what I've done to protect it, just like I do. There's a mark on the north-facing window, a faint handprint, from where I leaned last winter, exhausted, trying not to cry. I haven't cleaned it off. Not yet. Maybe I never will, because some things don't need wiping away. They just need witnessing. And I am finally my own witness.